Most Muslims have stopped at honey, dates, and olive oil and missed almost everything else. There are 15 foods the Sahih Hadith corpus records the Prophet, peace be upon him, personally loving, specific dishes he asked for, combinations he taught at his own table, foods he accepted with joy from the hands of his Sahaba and from the women of his household. At number 1, I will share the compound preparation Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated, the one where the Prophet himself explained the tib wisdom behind why he chose those two foods together, and that became the foundation of the entire prophetic medicine tradition. Bismillah, let us begin. Begin in the early morning of Medina, when the city was still cool. The Sahih corpus preserves the narration of the Prophet, peace be upon him, asking specifically for water brought from the homes of the Ansar, Mabuyut al-Ansar, the water that had rested overnight in their leather waterskins and become cool, sweet, and gentle by the morning. He did not ask for the freshest water from the well. He asked for the water that had been allowed to settle in the home of a believing family, water carried by hands that prayed, set down in a household where the dhikr of Allah was a constant presence. Ibn al-Qayyim in his Zad al-Ma'ad explained the wisdom. Water that has rested becomes gentler on the digestion, softer on the body, more easily received by a frame that has just risen from sleep. The cold of well water can shock the stomach of one who has fasted through the night. The rested water of the household enters the body without sharpness. Ibn Sina in his canon catalogued the same principle. Rested water, kept in a clean vessel and covered against the dust, becomes more compatible with the human constitution than water freshly drawn. Set a covered jug of water on your table each night and drink from it in the morning. The way the Ansar prepared it for him, peace be upon him. Walk from the morning of Medina into the household at the time of the noon meal. Multiple Sahih narrations across the Siha Sita record the Prophet, peace be upon him, served meat with bread, lahm bi khubz, and accepting the pairing with happiness. We covered bread with vinegar, bread with olive oil, and the bread and broth dish tharid in our earlier videos. Today we honor the simplest pairing, plain grilled halal meat served on or alongside warm bread. Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, who served in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, household for 10 years as a young man, described how the meals were arranged. The bread laid out first, warm from the clay oven, and the meat brought in beside it. Ibn al-Qayyim catalogued this pairing as the most balanced, strengthening meal in the Tib tradition. The bread carries the slow grain warmth. The meat carries the concentrated strength. Together they become a complete food. Ibn Sina in his canon recommended this combination for the working man, the convalescent, and the elderly, maintaining their strength. The teaching is the Sunnah of pairing itself. No single food was ever the meal in his household. Lean halal, lamb, goat, or beef, grilled simply with salt and served alongside fresh whole grain bread, the way the Sahaba ate it at his own table. Now move into the afternoon, when a Sahabi came to the door of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, household carrying a small basket. We covered the fig itself on the first video, the plant Allah swore by in Surah At-Tin. Today we honor the moment. Multiple Sahih supporting narrations describe the Prophet, peace be upon him, receiving a basket of fresh ripe figs. Tintari, the soft and just ripened kind, picked that very morning and brought directly to him, and accepting it with happiness. He held the basket in his hands and asked the companion to bring more from where these came. The beloved of Allah, peace be upon him, receiving a small gift and asking the kindness be repeated. This itself is a teaching on gratitude and on the small joys of the Sunnah household. Ibn Sina in his canon catalogued the fresh fig as moistening and cooling. the perfect autumn fruit, restoring the body's gentle moisture after the long heat of summer. Ibn al-Qayyim placed the fresh fig among the foods that gladden the heart of the believer, sweet without heaviness, gentle without weakness. A small basket of fresh figs at the table of a believer is itself a sunnah, a small joy he received with gratitude and asked to be brought again. From the afternoon meal, move into the evening. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, would warm a small pot of fresh milk for the Prophet, peace be upon him, after the night had settled over Medina. We covered honey on the second video and milk on the fourth. The combination, laban wa asal, the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, sometimes took them together, is its own Sahih preference and its own tib preparation. Ibn al-Qayyim in his Zad al-Ma'ad named milk and honey among the most complete recovery foods in the tib tradition. The milk providing moisture and gentle nourishment, the honey providing warming sweetness, and the bee medicine the Quran in Surah An-Nahl calls a healing for mankind. Ibn Sina in his canon described the compound as the most balanced restorative for the weak and the convalescent. The classical tib scholars prescribed this exact preparation for the body rebuilding after illness and for the elderly maintaining their warmth. Warm fresh milk stirred slowly with a small amount of raw honey taken in the evening or after illness, not for infants under 1 year. Stay in the household of the Prophet, peace be upon him, at the end of the day and listen to Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, describing the daily provisions. She called them simply the bread and the dates of the family of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Tamr wa khubz. We have covered dates and bread in their other forms. The household combination, the everyday meal of his family, is the Sunnah teaching today. The simplest food was his most constant food. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, continued. She said there were sometimes 2 and 3 new moons that would pass and no fire was lit in his kitchen. The Sahaba asked her what they lived on. She said, the bread and the dates of the family of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Ibn al-Qayyim catalogued the pairing as a complete sustaining meal. The whole grain bread releases its energy slowly, the dates provide immediate natural sweetness, and the two together carry a household through the day. Ibn Sina noted that this pairing maintains the body in stable warmth and stable moisture. There were nights when this was all the family had. There were many such nights, and the beloved of Allah, peace be upon him, was content with it. A torn round of dark whole grain bread and 3 good dates beside it, the simplest meal in the Sunnah, and the one he ate the most. Now walk with the Prophet, peace be upon him, into the year after the conquest of Khaybar. Sahih Bukhari 5391 preserves the narration. A Jewish woman of Khaybar presented a roasted goat, sha'a mashwiya, to the Prophet, peace be upon him, who accepted it as a guest's offering. He took 1 bite. The shoulder of the goat itself spoke to him by the permission of Allah, warning him that it had been poisoned. The Prophet, peace be upon him, did not eat further. And a Sahabi who had not heard the warning, Bishr ibn al-Bara, may Allah be pleased with him, died from the poisoned bite he had taken. The Sahih Hadith preserves both the acceptance of roasted goat as a beloved hospitality offering and the protection Allah extended to His Messenger. We covered the spit-roasted lamb of Eid sacrifice on our 5th video. This is a different animal, a different occasion, a different Sahih moment. Ibn Sina catalogued goat meat as lighter and more digestible than lamb, specifically suited for warmer constitutions and for those of weaker digestion. Ibn al-Baytar placed roasted goat among the most balanced of the halal red meats for the body in moderate seasons. slow roasted with cumin, garlic, and rosemary, served on a platter, the way a hospitality offering would have been received in his household. A quick reminder before we go further, at number 1 I will share the compound preparation Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated, where the Prophet himself explained the tib wisdom of pairing two specific foods. Stay with me, now. We covered the rendered tail fat used for cooking on our 11th video. Today is the meat of the tail region itself, al-aliyah, what the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Sahaba ate at the table, not what they cooked with. Sahih Bukhari 5379 documents the Sahaba eating from the aliyah at communal meals as a hospitality cut. The aliyah was, among the Arabs of the Hejaz, the cut reserved for honored guests. When a Bedouin tribe received a traveler from a distant land, when a household received the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself, the aliyah was placed on the platter as the mark of honor. Ibn al-Baytar catalogued the aliyah as one of the richest cuts in the sheep, concentrated in warming energy, reserved for guests of honor and for the convalescent rebuilding strength. Ibn Sina in his canon noted the cut as particularly suited for the body in cold weather, providing slow, sustained warmth through the long hours of a winter night. Slow braised with onions and a touch of cumin, served sliced thin onto warm bread. Move from the meat platter into the cool side of the Medina summer table. We covered cucumber on the first video and yogurt on our 8th. The combination, yogurt mixed with fresh cucumber as the cooling Medina summer dish, is its own Sahih preparation and its own balanced teaching. Laban wa Kitha. Multiple supporting Sahih narrations of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, on the Prophet's, peace be upon him, table place this compound among the most loved cooling preparations of the Medina household. The Medina summers were long and dry. His household needed foods that would cool without weakening, that would refresh without leaving the constitution depleted. Ibn al-Qayyim in his Zad al-Ma'ad explained the wisdom. Yogurt cools the body and aids digestion. Cucumber cools and cleanses, drawing the body's heat out gently through the skin. Together they produce the most balanced, cooling without weakness food for hot summer days. This is the same mizaj principle the climax will teach in full, but inverted. Here, cooling balances cooling for summer relief. In our climax, cooling balances warming for compound perfection. Ibn al-Baytar recommended this exact compound for the household member fatigued by the noon heat, and every daily practice of his household, how they ate, drank, rested, and healed, has been gathered for you in the Sunnah Home Manual. 40 practices, every hadith verified, every source shown. The small square code at the top of your screen will stay there for the rest of the video. Hold your phone's camera to it whenever you like, and it will carry you to sunnahgardens.com. The same link sits in the description below. Now back to the table. A small clay bowl of pale yogurt with sliced cucumber on top, drizzled with olive oil and lightly salted. Step now into the date orchards of Medina at the season of half-ripening. Sahih Bukhari 5447 preserves a small but specific Sahih moment. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was seen holding the branch of Basar Mudanab, the dates at the half-ripening stage, partially turned, the color shifting from green to red amber on the branch itself. He ate from them with happiness. We have covered the mature dry date and the fresh ripe date. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was also documented loving the half-ripening stage on the branch. The moment when the date is moving from astringent to sweet, when the cooling firmness of the unripe is meeting the warming sweetness of the ripe. The Sahaba who walked through the orchards with him noted how he reached for this exact stage, not the green basar alone, not the fully ripe rutab alone, but the danab, the half-turned, the date caught between two states. Ibn al-Qayyim catalogued the half-ripening date as having a perfectly balanced mizaj, the cooling of the unripe still partly present, the warming sweetness of the ripe beginning to emerge. His preference at this exact stage was itself a teaching on the perfection of balance, on the wisdom of catching a food at the moment of its transformation rather than at the extremes of either side. Walk into the household of Sulaim, the mother of Anas ibn Malik. May Allah be pleased with both of them. Sahih Bukhari 5085 and 5604 preserve the moment. She prepared a wedding feast for the Prophet, peace be upon him, and among the foods she served was Aqit, the sun-dried hard curd of the Medina household, the food of the Bedouin, and the household provision of the early Sahaba. The Prophet, peace be upon him, ate from it and accepted the feast. Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, who carried the bowls to the table as a young man, preserved the narration with his own hand. We covered yogurt and buttermilk on earlier videos. Aqit is its own preparation. The milk cultured, drained, formed into small rounds, then left in the sun until it hardens into a dense, tangy, long-keeping food. The Sahaba carried it in their saddlebags on long journeys. It was the traveling protein of the Medina household. Ibn al-Baitar documented Aqit as one of the most concentrated forms of fermented dairy in the Tib tradition, strengthening, easy to preserve, digestible even for the convalescent. Ibn Sina noted its specific benefit for the traveler whose body needs concentrated nourishment in a portable form, crumbled over warm broth or eaten with bread and dates. Stay at the moment. Sahih Bukhari 5613 records the famous right side narration. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was brought milk that had been diluted with cold water. Lubn mamzuj bimarin barid. He drank from it. There was a more senior companion sitting on his left and a young man on his right. He passed the cup to the right, asking the young man's permission to give precedence to the elder, and the young man, honored to drink after the Prophet, peace be upon him, kept the cup for himself. The Hadith preserves both the right side adab teaching and the specific preparation, milk diluted with cold water. We covered plain milk on the fourth video. The Prophet's, peace be upon him, preference recorded in this Sahih moment was for the milk and water dilution. Ibn al-Qayyim explained the wisdom. Diluted milk is gentler on the digestion, especially in warm weather, easier on a fasting stomach. Ibn Sina, in his canon, catalogued the dilution as a tib preparation in its own right, the cool water tempering the warmth of the milk, producing a drink more compatible with the human constitution than either alone. Fresh halal milk stirred with an equal part of cool water, taken slowly. Move now to the sunset of Ramadan. Multiple Sahih Hadith record the Prophet's, peace be upon him, Iftar ritual, Sharbat al-Iftar, breaking the fast with dates, then with water, in a specific sequence. The components are familiar to every Muslim. The ritual order and the timing is what makes this its own Sunnah. He did not break his fast with whatever was at hand. He broke it with fresh ripe dates if they were available, with dried dates if they were not, with cool water if no dates could be found, in a specific sequence taught to the Sahaba. He would take an odd number of dates, 3, 5, 7, and follow them with sips of water, not gulps. Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, preserved the detail of the sequence. Ibn al-Qayyim devoted a section of Zad al-Ma'ad to the tib wisdom of this practice. The empty stomach is gently rehydrated with the natural sweetness of the date first, restoring the body's energy at a pace it can receive, then with cool water second, calibrated by the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself to break the fast without shocking the body. Ibn Sina catalogued this as the model rehydration protocol for any prolonged fast. a small clay cup of cool water, and 3 dates set out at sunset, the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, broke his fast through every Ramadan of his life. Now hear a food the Prophet, peace be upon him, personally loved, named by name in the Sahih corpus, in Sunan at-Tirmidhi, Hadith 1837, graded Hasan Sahih. Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that meat was brought to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the foreleg, al-dhira, was presented to him, and he used to like it, so he bit from it. Al-dhira. The preference is specific, not the largest cut, not the most expensive. The foreleg, the lean, tender cut from the upper leg of the animal, was the portion he reached for and ate with pleasure. The Sahaba who served at his table knew it as the cut to present to him, the piece he loved above the others. We covered the tail meat and the organ cuts in our earlier videos. This is the cut the Sahih corpus records him loving by name. Whichever piece of halal meat sits at your table, the foreleg is the part the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught us to honor. Ibn al-Baytar catalogued the foreleg as among the most easily digested and quickly nourishing cuts of any halal animal, lean, tender, and gentle on the stomach. Ibn Sina, in his canon, placed the foreleg among the lightest and most strengthening portions of the body of the animal, particularly suited to the convalescent and to the one of weaker digestion. Ibn al-Qayyim noted in Zad al-Ma'ad that the Prophet's, peace be upon him, love of the foreleg reflected the tib wisdom of the lightest meat being the most readily received by the body. Slow roasted or grilled simply with salt and a little cumin. The way the Prophet, peace be upon him, received it at his own table, the foreleg presented and bitten from with pleasure. Approach the climax now. We covered watermelon itself on the first video. We covered the watermelon and date pairing on the fourth. The Sahih corpus also records a third watermelon preparation, batikh wa khubz, watermelon with bread, that uses the same balance principle our climax will fully teach. The supporting Sahih chains record the Prophet, peace be upon him, eating watermelon with bread as a specific cool with warm balance preparation. Ibn al-Qayyim explained the wisdom in Zad al-Ma'ad. Watermelon is cold and moist in its constitution. Bread is warm and dry. The combination is the perfect mizaj balance for the hot Medina summer, providing cooling moisture without producing weakness or heaviness. The cold of the fruit is broken by the warmth of the grain. The dryness of the bread is softened by the moisture of the watermelon. Neither overwhelms the body. This is the bridge teaching that prepares us for the climax. Ibn Sina, in his canon, noted that this pairing reflects the tib principle of opposites. The food of one constitution paired with the food of the opposite constitution, producing balance instead of excess. A wedge of fresh red watermelon and a torn piece of warm bread set together. The same wisdom of pairing the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught at his own table. And now at number 1, Sahih Bukhari, Hadith 5440. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated, the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to eat cucumber with fresh ripe dates, chitha wa rutab. She continued the narration with her own story. Her mother, Ruman, may Allah be pleased with her, had been trying to fatten her up for marriage to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and various foods failed. Then her mother gave her cucumber together with fresh ripe dates. The combination worked. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, gained the strength her mother had hoped for. And she preserved alongside the practice, the tib, reasoning the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself had shared. The cooling food balances the warming food. The cucumber, cooling and moist. The fresh ripe date, warming and sweet. When taken together, the cool of one breaks the heat of the other, and the body receives the moisture and the nourishment of both without imbalance, neither chilling the constitution with too much cold, nor heating it with too much warmth. We touched on this combination briefly on the fourth video. Today, we honor the full Sahih moment, Aisha's complete narration, the Prophet's, peace be upon him, own explanation of why he chose these two foods together, and the principle that became the foundation of the entire prophetic medicine tradition. Ibn al-Qayyim in Zad al-Ma'ad devoted an entire chapter to this exact hadith. He wrote, "The fresh ripe date is hot in the third degree and moist in the second. The cucumber is cold in the second degree and moist in the second. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, combined them, the heat of the one breaks the cold of the other, and the body receives the moisture of both without imbalance. This is the perfection of compound food he taught us." Ibn Sina built on it in his canon, naming the Aisha narration as the model case for the science of compound nourishment. Ibn al-Baitar named it as the foundational example of the science of compatible foods, and every Tib scholar who came after him drew from this one Sahih moment at the Prophet's, peace be upon him, table. 3 fresh green cucumbers arranged beside a small mound of glossy, fresh, ripe dates on a small clay platter. The same composition Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, prepared, and the same composition that taught the entire prophetic medicine tradition the principle of mizaj balance. That was our countdown of the 15 Sunnah foods the Prophet, peace be upon him, personally loved. Most of us were taught honey, dates, and olive oil and stopped there. The beloved of Allah, peace be upon him, loved far more than that, and the Sahih Hadith remembers each one. May Allah grant you and your family complete shifa. If anything on this list surprised you, share it in the comments. Bismillah. Until then.